Hey all, this is 012 Boku. Sorry for the bright background, and
This is Jar Jar Jackass, coming from you from inside the mind of the mystery box.
yes, and we are coming at you with another review. And again, I apologize for that bright background. I guarantee you, if I close the blinds, it's not going to make a bit of difference because I tried that in the living room and it didn't work either. So it's going to be the same thing here. But
Well, at least we didn't film it in the ruined Johnson living room.
I don't know why we'd want to be in Ryan Johnson's living room anyway. But anyway, since they can see it, the Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. And yeah, as you can see, we are on the next episode. I figured what we would do is in between every TV episode, we would do a regular TV episode. We would do an episode of the anime too, so we don't get too far behind in that. So I figured we'd start with that one. And there went my other note. Notes are dropping everywhere, folks. But we are on episode, I think I wrote it here. Yes, episode 25, Doorway to Darkness. And basically to start it off, I figured we'd go a little out of order because, as you know, I like to do the scenes where we talk about everything in full. There's a part where basically you have Gluttony bringing Alphonse into the father's lair, hilariously enough, while you have, I wrote her name here, because I always forget it, I feel bad. Oh yes, May Chang. You have May Chang, who is trying to find her panda, and you have Scar, who's trying to help her. They spot Alphonse and Gluttony going into this one basement area. They sort of follow them because, she sees May Chang. Oh yeah, there was a funny thing where she asks a worker about her panda, and her panda's like, yeah, that raccoon dog thing, yeah, was that the big metal man? Big metal man, oh no, not that scary guy, and then this huge cartoon thing of it looks like Alphonse's helmet being a mohawk, and he's all like cartoon monster, like, like that. It's like,
You know what I love about
hilarious.
that
What?
raccoon dog thing? Is like he's describing what the Japanese would call a tanuki for a panda, and she probably didn't even realize that there was a distinction between pandas and regular bears until she even got to that country.
Yeah, that is very true there, Jarek. And as you can imagine, she looks over and she sees Alphonse and her and Scar see Alphonse with Gluttony. Scar stops her, saying, "Wait, no, that's a homunculi. You don't want to mess with him. We may not be strong enough for him." And she's like, "Wait, a homunculi? What's that?" And he goes into like telling her it's an artificial person and that there could be danger here. They start to follow him into the sewers.
Yeah, and I remember he also said like they can regenerate. They're practically immortal. She's like, immortal? All the more reason to get them.
Oh, that's true. She did say that. Yeah, she did say that because May Chang is essentially looking for the same thing that Ling Yao is, because again, she's trying to get status for his family, or her family, where he's trying to get status for his. So, it's just all the more better, I guess, in her eyes. So they follow him down, and there's actually a part where Alphonse and Gluttony get to the turn where they're walking into the tunnels of these sewers. Bunch of skulls, bunch of dead people, and you have Gluttony go, like, oh, Alphonse go, oh, what's all this? Oh, the gatekeepers did those. The gatekeepers would harm you if you're with me. And it's like he looks up, glowing eyes, and basically you get to the thing of where there's chimeras down here. And I'll get to this part in a second because this happened at both the entrance of May Chang and when they're in the sewers. Because basically you have Scar and May Chang follow him down, and all of a sudden they get attacked by all these chimera types. You have different ones: bats, dogs, three-headed Cerberus wolves, all these creatures, and basically fighting for their lives in an awesome action sequence. It looked like Scar and her were not in any danger because with her alchemy and her martial arts, she takes care of them really well, and with Scar's right arm, he takes care of them, and like, these chimera are practically chopped liver.
Well, and I love how she again uses that exact same attack she used earlier, which you see in the intro to the show, where she basically has like these Hanafuda talisman tied to her kunai, so whenever she tosses them like at a creature and it embeds in them, she can basically create an alchemy circle and transmute the energy, because the kunai she uses to like tie down the circle will have the exact same talismans on it, so it's transporting the magic via the similar markings on each of the talismans.
Yeah, and what's funny is that, after they defeat everything, they start to walk, and then all of a sudden May Chang stops as Scar asks her, what's wrong, and he's like, she's like, don't you feel that? That feels like people, or like she says, or like when she first was going in the tunnel, there's a darkness here. I felt something wrong as soon as I entered the city. So, it's like she could probably feel the power of the Philosopher's Stone. I'm pretty sure that's what Hiromu Arikawa and the show creators were getting at. But I'm just like, I look at this the entire time. I'm like, given what you guys can do, you can sense darkness. It's just like, to me, it's that simple. It's like you guys can sense evil because you're in tune with the, what do they call that, feng shui. So,
well, what's interesting about that scene is both her and Alphonse pick up on it, but you don't really see Scar react to it. It's kind of like an interesting power gauging scale between the two, because Alphonse already knows it, he can already feel it, but even though he was trained by a genius alchemy expert, you can see that May Chang is way more naturally attuned to the shift in negative energy there. Probably, due to all the training in feng shui, living with animals, nature. But Scar, he's just like, he knows this place is wrong, but not because he's feeling it. I mean, he's been killing bitches all over the place. What does he care?
Well, yeah. And if you look at what we saw with his origins, his brother and his family seem to be the more religious side of the Ishvalans, and he was more of just like a warrior monk type, and like. You could probably tell once he lost his entire family and everything that happened, he probably questioned God and his whole reason for being. And, it's like how he said, like his teacher said, if you go down this path of vengeance, is this what your family would want? Your brother, anyone, this won't lead to anything. And that's exactly why he probably can't feel this, because to him, he still can't feel anything, even though he's starting to grow feelings for this little girl.
Plus, it's also kind of interesting because if you think about it, the two people who have the strongest negative reaction to this area are Alphonse and May Chang, arguably the two purest. Alphonse pretty much lost his entire body, and yet he spends all of his time worried about everyone else, and May Chang, I mean, innocent and naive as she is, you can see she's a caring individual. Scar, on the other hand, let's just say he got that arm of decomposition for a reason.
Yeah, and the scene almost ends with these guys, because this is what it sort of was. I'm going to save my favorite scene for last and not skip over it. But what happens is what it is that you have them walking towards it. All these guys are headed towards the same goal. And all of a sudden we get another glimpse finally. Well, we get two glimpses of Father. The second one is where he's sitting on his throne. We see a bunch of clockwork underground or gears underground, and he's sitting on his throne. And in Japanese, he's like someone just approaches, and it's like they come. And then what I like what we did in English is, I feel a new energy heading this way. Someone's come to find me. And I'm like, why is that so much better than someone comes?
You know what I find interesting about the scene with like the clockwork is it's panning into Father.
Well, gears. I don't want to say it's a clock, but it looks
gears.
like clock gears. Yeah.
It reminds me of like those old maps, they used to use in the ancient times when it depicted the world as being the center of the universe, and the universe was just like a series of clockwork gears, moving all the planets and everything into alignment with the sun. And it's kind of interesting because, I mean, Earth was always depicted as being like the center of the universe, the center of everything, God's truest kingdom. And what is he trying to do? He's trying to usurp the power of God, surrounded by the gears that make the entire nation work. He's going to sacrifice all the people within it. It's kind of dark, especially once we talk about the scene I know Boku's going to get to.
Interesting. I never made that connection to the Measlo Sen, but that's actually very interesting there, Jarek. And yeah, we'll get to that next, because the third scene, because both me and Jarek are fans of the guy, is why we're going to leave it for last. But that's because you probably know what we're talking about, but I'll save it for when we get there. But you also have where we go to, as that finishes, I mean, like I said, the show started out with Edward Ling Yao and, of course, Envy in his, I gotta stop thinking of the voice actresses in Japanese and English who voice Envy because Envy is an androgynous man. A man.
Stupid 68.
A man. Sorry, because of everything that they mentioned today, I can only think of what people think of Envy nowadays, and I cringe. But, yes,
Envy looks like a lady.
Which... Well, we're not going to get into that because we could probably go to what people think nowadays. But, yeah, Envy is a guy. And, he starts fighting off with them. And sadly, Edward and Ling Yao make a few dents, but they keep getting swatted away. Like, Ling Yao gets hit in the ribs really bad where he was injured. Edward gets tossed around. He's got the head injury. He's got a few, I think, injuries on his ribs as well. He gets hit and things like that, but they're still trying to fight back. Ling Yao, I think, was down for a while, and then Edward, is fighting off Envy, evading his strikes, goes for him, then all of a sudden, if you remember, we said Envy turned into this huge dragon lizard thing, but it had a whole bunch of faces. These faces are the souls of Xerxes, and we'll get into that, like, why, so we'll get to it, but there's a whole bunch of souls inside Envy, and these faces start coming up saying, oh God, kill me now, I want to die. And, all this pain that these souls are feeling. And obviously, Envy can manipulate them. So a soul starts saying, please kill me and this. And then all of a sudden, just creepy face, bug eyes. And
as I remember, the one that stopped him was like the sound, making the voice of a girl saying, brother, help me, and it caused the PTSD flashbacks from...
Or no, brother, can we play?
Yeah, brother, can we... And it was like, brother, can we play? And I think we all know what happened. He had the Nina flashbacks.
Yeah, remembering her Chimera. Jared thought it was Nina, but I'm like, no, it's a coincidence because, obviously, post-traumatic stress, and who could blame Edward because that was the first time in his life where, he's seen a lot of messed up things already, but considering how much... Even though he hated being teased by Nina, how much he hated the dog Alexander landing on him, you could tell for both Alphonse and Edward that was a horrific time. And you can see where both the Elrics wanting to help everyone they can, because remember, both Edward and Alphonse have made the declaration they don't want any more people of theirs that they know to die. But that's not an easy promise. And remembering that,
and before we get to the next part, during the fight, you see him getting knocked into, like, the rubble, and Edward kind of, like, sees what appears to be rubble from what must have been Xerxes, because remember, this is Gluttony, he's eating a lot of shit, and there's little leaves, there's statues, there's this shit all over the place, and he's, I think at one point he gets knocked into one, is like, this kind of looks like what I saw at Xerxes. And, of course, Envy does the distraction thing with the girl and swallows Edward. And as he's literally falling inside the darkness of Envy, all the voices and the noise and the souls he sees the Philosopher's Stone, which I think is in his tongue, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's in his tongue, but that's also the center part of Envy's throat. And also with the souls too, I'm just going to name a little drop here. I don't know if any of you guys saw this, but it reminded, I'm wondering if Hiromu Arikawa was influenced by Evil Dead, because a lot of those voices when Edward gets picked up are like, you'll die with us, join us. And I remember the whole join us thing was a huge thing in Evil Dead when they were all getting possessed. Well, I don't know why that made me think of Evil Dead, but probably because they're souls that are possessed by Envy.
And you know what else that reminded me of? Like, Envy's form with all the faces of the people he ate on it and everything. It both reminds me of that turtle demon from Devilman. The one who, like, kills you, steals your face, puts it on his shell, and then he torments you for all of eternity. The one that Devilman faces in the sewers in the 80s OVA, if I remember. And I think he also had another match with him in the Devilman versus Amon OVA about a decade later. Anyways, also that, but it also reminds me, again, of the devil, because, the devil had his wings taken away, he turned into a dragon, some depictions depicted as a flightless dragon, more like a basilisk, like a giant, almost like a lizard.
One way, that's what Envy looks like, is a giant dragon lizard thing.
And when you think about it, he's in what could be reasonably described as hell. he's got the voices of all the souls he's basically murdered and is tormenting for all of eternity, literally attached to him, screaming out in agony to be relieved. And on a more personal note, this actually hit my PTSD trigger, because I don't know if you kids know this, but I used to have some really freaky fucking nightmares when I was in high school, including one where I saw hell itself, and I'm not gonna lie, it looked pretty damn close. Needed a little bit more shouting and shrieking from the dead voices, but damn close.
Well, interesting. I did not catch that at all. So
Yeah,
sorry about that, Jarek.
I didn't want to tell you, but I was freaking the fuck out when I saw that shit. It was. I don't know if she was smoking this. I don't know if she was on the same crazy juice I was on in high school, but that was a little dangerously close to home, just saying.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, well, that's what this stuff can do sometimes. It can bring back your own memories, too. So, hey, apologies for that, though. I did not mean to do that to you, Jarek.
Don't worry about it. Don't really tell people that one, because I get some pretty weird looks when people find out I've had dreams about HE double hockey sticks, you know?
Yeah, well, we all had, dude. Mine, I mean, I've had some as a kid, but I had a real bad one once I saw The Exorcist for the first time. But that's what this stuff does. It can bring shit out in your mind. But hey,
that's why I don't go to Los Angeles anymore.
But yeah, as the fight happens, like as Jarek mentioned, Edward sees the Philosopher's Stone. Something clicks off in his head because he remembers the murals that Jarek was talking about that he saw. Literally kicks open one of Envy's teeth and says, "Envy, let me out of here. You want to get out of here, don't you? Come on, let me out, let me out." And, like, all of a sudden, Edward says, "I have this plan. I remember these murals." And, he mentions how the sun means life, the moonlight means death and forgiveness or renewal, and then...
No, wasn't the sun... I think the sun was life, the moon is the mind.
The moon is the mind,
Earth is humanity, if I remember correctly. And then they get to, like, this one mural where it has, honest to God, written in Hebrew the name God, but it's written upside down, and he's like, I've seen this mural before. This is the word for God, but it's written upside down, and he's like, translated is like, so basically what this is saying is...
Oh, well, you forgot the dragon that was next to it, saying that was a person.
Yeah, the two-headed dragon, which in their alchemy depicts perfection, which, strangely enough, also was a thing in our world, like in Prussia and areas like that. But it's like, so basically what this is saying is, I will become a perfect being and devour God and become everything.
Yeah.
Or something to that effect.
Well, no, basically, yeah, become God and become... absolute. And Edward says, is that who your father is this what he wants to do? And also he even brings up the kingdom of Xerxes. You're probably the one who destroyed Xerxes, and because how could a whole civilization disappear? That was you, Envy. All these souls, is that who they are? And Envy sort of gives the truth but plays coy and says, "Hey, get me out of here and I'll let you know everything you want to know." And then he says, "Okay, well, since I have all this information, find all the murals." And Envy goes around and finds them all. They all place them in a circle, and then obviously Edward makes, with the dust and the dirt and even some of the carvings that they were on in that centerpiece, he makes a alchemic symbol for a gateway, because he's like, if we got in here with the same logic, we can use these scriptures and this gateway here to reverse it to get us out. Envy and, actually, no. Ling Yao isn't shocked about all this. Envy, I forgot, I said this to Jarek. Envy's actually looking at this where he's a little shocked himself, but he's, curious, saying, "Damn, this kid's figuring stuff out. Even I didn't know this, but you know what? Father probably knew this," or something to that effect. Because Envy was looking at him with curiousness, not not shock.
And when Boku told me that, I told him, it's like, I think Envy's starting to realize that there's some kind of a correlation between how brilliant these kids are and Father. Because, who else would be able to make that logical conclusion? Because, literally, the plan is he's gonna basically do a human transmutation, because, every time you do, the truth will feel it, and he will pull you into his realm.
Well,
And it's like, but it's like, what are you going to human transmutate? It's like myself, which makes sense because that worked the last time. It's like, and this is what I love. Envy is actually going to let him use his Philosopher's Stone as the fuel for the cost. But yet, I love that he does ask him, it's like, what if this doesn't work? And he's like, well, following the rules of alchemy, the spell will rebound back on the one who cast it, myself. And I kind of love this because at this point, they're all at their most desperate moment. If they don't leave, all of them, even Envy, will die eventually without new souls to consume. Edward's already afraid that he may basically be in a situation where he'll never be able to keep his promise to Winry and Al. And Ling is probably just impressed at every crazy thing he's learning about these two. It's like, I mean, on one hand, he would be sad to see Edward die, but he's like, this is way past anything he was ever even sent to do. This is like him literally witnessing demigods, playing around with the laws of reality.
but at the same time, he's intrigued in this because the more I know they don't show it, but the more and more I kept thinking, even the first time I saw this with my other friend, I said, Gyaldir, my other friend, he said that, I said that, there was, Ling Yao was taking all this in and probably learning this. There was, like, he wasn't not paying attention to all this. So you can tell he's probably gathering information this whole time and just thinking about it. Because there's even a part before they do this where, Edward's like, hey, warn my people if you get out that this is what they plan. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. You have people you love, don't you? So come back. But the problem with the bestiary and everything, that doesn't involve me or my people, so you're on your own. So, typical thing, and that's what makes me go, aha, see, it's for him. So you can tell he's keeping all the information in, but, that's sort of the thing, is Ling Yao has his own problem. And also, as Jarek brought up, he had to use Envy's Philosopher's Stone. Edward was a little, upset with this because he didn't want to kill all the souls, and he's like, is it pity I'm feeling? Come on, these souls are way past saving. You can't do anything. They don't even remember their bodies or their original forms or even have their original minds. All they have is their pain, regret, and everything else. So you know what? It's basically you be helping us get out and in a way freeing them for their torment. So who cares if you eliminate all souls? They can never go back to how they returned. And as dark as that is, Jarek was saying, Envy had a creepy little point with that because, in a way, it's what they're doing, but it's the darker side of the coin.
Yeah. But it also, again, kind of brings me back to the Bible. Like, when Jesus, after he died, was sent to hell, and then he took all those souls back to heaven with him after he left. It's kind of reminded me of that. And I mean, I know, Edward's probably not thinking too much about that, but it's just kind of neat how many times this ties back to religion. It's kind of touching almost.
And then, as you know, even though Edward didn't want to do it, he eventually makes the portal. I don't think Envy was that frightened of it because Envy knew, probably knowing Edward, this would have worked. But Ling Yao was afraid to step into it. He stepped into it. They become a bunch of papier-mâché pixels and disappear inside the thing. Edward almost jumps through too, but he looks back at Envy's bodies as it's being, disintegrated or reintegrated, whatever you want to call it. And I think in English, you have Edward Vic Mignogna doing the voice where he's imagining the souls saying thank you. But I think in the Japanese, the souls themselves were telling Edward thank you because you just see this look on their face that even though Edward is disgusted with what he had to do, it's like I even was saying at the screen, don't feel bad about it. You just set these souls free. They were eternally trapped with an envy. So you did them a favor by letting them go to God or wherever the hell they were going to go by releasing them because honestly, I bet even if some of them went to hell, that torment would probably be better than what was, what was inside Envy, for God's sake. But, it's like, he looks back with just a little sad expression. He goes through, and then, I'm just going to make a funny thing here. Let's do the time warp again,
Or, considering he's traveling through time and space, dun 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 dun.
Yeah. Doctor Who, absolutely. And, he goes back, and then
But one quick thing, I do love when he's traveling how, you can see like the stream of time and history flowing around him, and he's basically trying to keep his eyes closed so he doesn't get distracted.
Yeah.
But I love how it's like a film reel. Like, it looks like a film reel of continuous events playing out, but too fast for the mind to comprehend. Which kind of reminds me like that scene where, where Grell cuts Sebastian open. Oh, where's the good stuff? I'm sorry, but I charge extra for those.
Indeed, indeed. In a way, I look at it as like the streams of time going through. It does look like a film reel, but it's like ribbons or streams of time to like quote Boych there. That's how I viewed it. But otherwise, same thing. And as they're going through, Edward, I think Edward, he had his eyes closed to some of it, but I think he was just looking straight ahead towards the light because he knew he didn't want to take in any information to, obviously affect the cost. And then obviously he sees really quickly truth and or God, because that is who that essentially is. He sees God, and in Japanese it was a little weird because he's like, not weird, but he's like, back for more, eh? But then like Lucy Christian, who does the voice of God, said with both his arm and his leg and that creepy look still on his face, do you even want to get your original bodies back? It's like sort of mocking them, saying, you're going the wrong way. Are you sure you want to keep going through all this? Is it going to be worth it? So in a way, it's just like, hey, you paid the ultimate price, so you're going to keep paying more going down this way. But hey, that's what he's willing to do, which is I'll drop this really quick, what I told Jarek. It's almost like Alphonse and Edward and some of their other friends are on one giant crusade almost to go through the pain of their loss. Like, okay, you want to get your bodies back after what you did? You're going to be on a crusade for God and don't even know it. Take that, science.
Well, hey, if you want to take it one step further, think about this. Alphonse is in a gigantic suit of armor that almost looks like some of those old Germanic suits of armor that they would wear to battle. And what's Edward wearing? Well, he's wearing a gigantic red coat. Kind of like a cardinal.
That is true. I never thought about that.
Because a cardinal or a saint, because the funny thing is, and again, this is for you weeb-loving FGOers out there, Emiya Archer, a.k.a. future emo Shiro Emiya, why does he wear a red coat? Well, because in FGO, it's a coat of saints. He died sacrificing himself for the good of humanity and making a contract with the will of the world in order to protect humanity. He basically became a saint. Mm-hmm. Which, if you think about it, Edward's kind of a bit of a saint himself the way he is.
Oh, yeah. And, that's a good distinction. And leading to that distinction that Jarek just mentioned, Edward, goes through the door, but then hilariously enough, he goes through one end to awaken, and then all of a sudden, he sees there's a second door, doesn't notice anything about... What, Hawk?
I think he's barking at Diego.
Oh, yeah. Doesn't see anything about it, but then all of a sudden, he sees there's a person standing there, very much like not a body type because his body seems very starved, malnourished. But then he notices it has a similar long hair type and colored hair to him. All of a sudden, this body turns around. It's Alphonse's body, and like Edward goes into overdrive trying to get to Alphonse, and Alphonse, which I'm gonna say that this Alphonse said it was his body, but you gotta think a piece of the soul of Alphonse stayed with the body, otherwise how would the body be existing? And I hate to say it, if he's between doorways, non-existence, how is he existing in non-existence? But he tells Edward that, I can't go with you. It's not time yet. Only my soul can take the body back. And then, but Edward is trying whatever he can. And creepy laughter is the doorway he came through is opening behind him, and God's like rejected. All the arms are reaching out to him, pulling him back in. And he's like, Alphonse, and, great acting from both actors involved, but, just being pulled in, the door shuts. All of a sudden, Alphonse is just standing there, sort of just glum. All of a sudden, boom, the doorway opens back up, and he's like, Alphonse, I keep my promise to you. I will come back to you. You hear me? You stay here, and I'll be back for you. I've not given up. You hear me, Al? I'll be back. I'll be back. And, he goes through, and then the body of Alphonse has a little smirk on his face, knowing that Edward is going to keep that promise, and then let it all.
You know what I think it is? I don't think it was part of his soul. Actually, I think it was like the trace memories of him when he was a kid from the incidents.
Well, that also could be too, because there has to be something, because otherwise the body would have been lifeless and couldn't speak.
And I mean, technically, it could also just be truth again doing what truth does.
Well, that is true. God just messing with him. Which believe me, guys, if you don't think God didn't mess with people, read the Bible sometimes. Like when you ticked off God, you ticked him off.
Remember, people, God is the original 4chan internet troll.
Oh, that is true. That is true. And granted, that is where it ends, but this is the scene I wanted to say for last. It was a real quick scene, but I think one of the best in the show, is we actually get a small but quick origin story of Fuehrer Bradley, where he talks about where he was born. He can't remember if he was given up for adoption or if he was just made. He has no idea of if he had even any real parents. And what's creepy is he looks like his adopted son, Salim Bradley. He looks exactly like him. I never noticed that during the first watch, but at this watch, he did look like his, again, adopted son, because that's what they said, Salim's adopted, but creepily enough, they look exactly like each other.
And I told Boku, this part in particular, along with the other one, scared the crap out of me, because this reminds me a little too much of what Hitler tried to do with the eugenics, the master race, the breeding experiments with twins, which may or may not have been continued in South America when a certain somebody escaped there after World War II, but hey, fucking whatever. Anyways, it kind of reminded me of that, because he mentions, like, there were many of us there. We were all raised, trained to do one thing, to see who would become the king of this nation. And let's just say this proves to me that, what's her name again? Arakawa?
Hiromu Arakawa, yeah.
Hiromu Arakawa must be one of the biggest history buffs in Japan, because the detail on this is frightening. If you've ever seen the photographs of what the shit they were doing with the genetic experiments, the attempts at perfecting uber breeding, it's frightening. It's almost a 1-to-1 scale representation at times.
Yeah, and obviously to that, like Jarek said, Fuehrer Bradley says they were trained in statecraft, combat, swordsmanship, intelligence, schooling, basically all the things you would need to be a leader. And whenever we would see the scientists, their eyes, if they weren't wearing glasses, their eyes were like blackened out so you couldn't see them, or their glasses would just be a clear milk.
What it was is like they were all lit up, like.
Yes.
And I hate to use.
Well, no, they were lit up like a milky white. Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, and this is kind of again another reason why I think Arakawa is a fucking genius, because it's like they're blinded by the light of their ambition.
Mm-hmm.
Or as Bruce Springsteen put it in the 1970s, blinded by the light. Yeah. Blinding me with science, that's what happened to those guys.
Yeah, and again, you had things where they have the obviously creepy scientist with the gold tooth, and just like you can tell, but like Jarek said, you can tell this is an obvious connection to German science street or science, and just their mad thing of human experiments. Because what happened was, once they were older, and also during some of the things where Bradley would hurt somebody, he would actually feel remorse and pity for people. They were telling him, oh, don't worry, he was just a cog in the wheel for a greater plan. And then, we see a lot of, humans and people screaming, and it sounded bad in Japanese, but whoever did that scream for the English dub, yeah, that sounded nasty. But what happened is Bradley's turn is next, and they say, come on, just lay down and relax. And, they were using refinement of the Philosopher's Stone in a liquid form. And, Bradley didn't know this, of course, yet, but they, strapped him down, and he looks over to see dead soldiers in the next room where their bodies look like they just exploded from the inside out, and they were all dead. And he's like freaking out, actually asking them, what happened to them, what's going on, what's all this going to do. And then, as a distraction in a way, Father appears before Bradley the first time and says, Will you be the one to do it? Will you be the one to become my wrath? And that distracted Bradley long enough for them to insert the needle into him. And then, you hear Bradley say, as who he is now, saying how it just racked him, all the pain and everything. Like the Philosopher's Stone was trying to destroy and recreate my body. And it's like the only thing that was left was that it was me. And, the scientists are like, success, success, we created the Fuehrer,
and I remember
celebrating.
What was chilling was when he was describing it to Roy Mustang, because, yeah, he's telling this to Roy Mustang, by the way. He's saying, I could feel it happening, the Philosopher's Stone, all those souls basically tearing me apart and putting me back together. It was basically a war inside of myself. Who would win? The will of the stone, all the souls inside of it, or my own? And he's like, in the end, I'm not even really sure if this was my original soul or if it was one of the others. But it doesn't matter because in the end it succeeded. And what really scares me about this one in particular is I almost feel like this is, again, another odd biblical reference that would go way over most people. But when I think about it, refining the stone into a liquid and then injecting it into his veins to make him the wrath of the man who wants to become God reminds me of one of the most famous of the either fallen angels or one of the darker angels that's still on God's side called, what was it again? Samael, the poison of God. Because Samael is, often called the angel of death. And if you think about it, injecting liquid wrath into your veins to see if you can either survive it or overcome it is like taking in the poison of a dark heaven.
Yeah, and obviously after we hear, that story, he became the Fuehrer, in a way because, I think he was curious, but in a way because he cares, because he knows in a way he's still talking to someone who was once human, and obviously we've seen Bradley's human side come out a little more in this show, which I think is a nice touch. He goes, well, you were once fully human. Would you ever try to become fully human again? And in Japanese, he says, well, why would I care? That part of me's gone. Give up this absolute power. Not going to happen. But in English, he says, well, no. Why would I? That's such an entertaining notion, Mustang. Why would I ever entertain such frivolity? No, what I am is what I am now, and I am forever that. And it's like, I like how he says frivolity isn't like, would it be fun to go back? Maybe, but why would I give up what I am to be what I used to be? And again, it's such a great scene, and that's basically all that scene was finding out the truth about Bradley. And I'm like, it's short, but it's so interesting to see how he was made and how, because in the original, not to spoil it, in the original, he was a homunculus. He was a human homunculus made by Dante to age and to live like a human. But in this one, he was a human who was made half homunculus, essentially.
Yeah, and wasn't he Pride in the first one?
Yes, he was Pride, and in this one he was Wrath, which both work for the character. So, hey. But, that's how it essentially, that's not where the episode ends, but that's where we leave off. So all those pieces are in place to continue on and go through and just be like, holy crap, that was a, banger of an episode. And, basically with favorite characters here, now I get the character list. Basically for me, I'm going to say for this one, again, everyone involved was really good. I don't think there was really one who was better over the other. But if I had to pick, for me, Edward Elric, Vic Mignogna, Romy Paku, both voice actors were really great in this one. Romy Paku was honest. I will give a little bit of an edge to Romy Paku. Romy Paku really brought out the emotion in this one. Vic Mignogna was really great too, so taking nothing away from him. But Romy Paku, I think, had a little bit of an edge over Vic Mignogna in this one, because, especially at that end scene when Romy Paku was screaming for Alphonse, I'm like, damn, she really brought it in that scene. And let's see, I'd have to say, NV, Wendy Powell, Minami Takayama, just a very evil, wicked character, but yet you entertain his curiosities, but both those voice actors brought it out. Wendy Powell, just a little bit more in the sinisterness, but yeah, it's just like, woohoo. And then, obviously, you guys know me because I'm a huge fan of his, and we got to hear a story. King Bradley, Ed Blaylock, Hidekatsu Shibata. Hidekatsu Shibata was really good, but I love how Ed Blaylock just just brings in this sinister, but yet, he's full of pride. But then again, that's how he ends his talk with Mustang. That woman you killed, lust. she'd die with pride, wouldn't you? And that's how I would like to die, full of pride. And that's what I love what Ed Boylock brings out. He really brings out that pridefulness, and he's happy who he is. So you know what? If I die, I'm gonna die as how I am, and that's a great way of pride for me. But again, pride is also a sin, but then they are the embodiment of sin. So hee-ho. But those are my characters. Jarek, yours.
Well, I'm going with the same ones, but in a slightly different variation. For the English version of I'm going with Vic Mignogna for Ed, simply because I have to admit, well, we don't exactly get to see Vic do quiet, somber, or even downright remorseful. When he does it, it's sometimes almost more powerful than when he's screaming.
That is true, yeah.
When you see Vic go into that place, he is just hit me where I live, man. Vic he really is the anti-bitch lasagna to end them all. So, you know what, Vic? Keep doing you and don't listen to the goddamn haters.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah. The second one I believe you said was
Wendy Powell, and the Wendy Powell, Minami Takayama.
I can't even disagree with that. I mean, Wendy, goddamn woman, you scare me in this episode. And I mean,
rightfully so.
And I've seen fucking hell, so doing that's pretty goddamn impressive. And of course, Brad the Chad, because fuck you, Brad the Chad.
Yeah. Well, again, it's like Ed Blaylock just brings something to the character. And Hidekatsu Shibata, that honor and nature of the Japanese, but also that sinisterness that he can hide behind it is just like, but that's what I love about Hidekatsu Shibata. He's like, it's just an everyday thing. I mean, but I'm evil.
With all the former soldiers I've seen for Ed Blaylock to just nail that. Him and everyone else who played the soldiers in this were just perfect. I mean, yeah. Seriously, big ups.
And also, the way that Ed Blaylock did it, when we heard it in English, me and, Jarek nodded to each other, we're like, now we can see the Hitler connections, come into place. But I mean, yeah, those were the characters. And yeah, hats off to all three of you guys. I mean, everybody else, though, too, did a great job in this episode. Even the supporting cast, your screams, the tortured souls, the people, it was just, everything was brought out in this one really well. And as for final thoughts, I love how this is culminating right now, because we're on the final disc, so this is all... because we finished the last part of the disc on this one. We have one more disc to get to, so you can tell this is culminating into the end of the first part, which will go into the second part right after. But they broke this show up into two series discs. This is collection 1, which is episodes 1 through 33. And, you can tell you're getting to the end of the first part of the show, and it's just like, dang, you can tell that it's building to a great climax, and what a great build. I mean, that's what I think. Jarek, final thoughts for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's really starting to look like we're going to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Indeed, how ironic behind us, right? But, again, what do you guys think? Have you been along with us for this ride? And, if not, would you like, again, to check something like this out? Just leave a comment for us down below, and just let us know what you think. But until then,
also, we're kind of going to be a little bit slower with these.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, his work's being a little bit of a bitch. Just saying. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you get a bunch of closing shifts.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're the only reliable guy on the job.
I don't want to toot my own horn, but possibly, yeah. But, hey, until then, 012 Boku.
The jackass with the most.
Alright, and we will speak to you guys again, hopefully soon, but we'll do what we can for you, alright? Until then, deuces.
Deuces.